Good morning. Today my first stop is the Archaeology Museum, which interestingly enough sits on top of the ancient Acropolis when the Greeks started Byzantium. Anyway, this museum is made up of three parts. There's the Archaeology Museum, the Museum of Ancient Orient, and the Tile Museum. This is Aya Irena, and it is a 6th century church, and what's unusual about it, it was actually never converted into a mosque. So I'm at the Topkapi Palace, and this was the home to the Ottoman sultans from about 1456 until their fall in 1918. Now, if you're curious about how the word Ottoman came around, well, that was because up until about the 12th or 13th or 14th centuries, there were a group of nomadic tribes known as the Seljuk Turks, and they kind of roamed around Anatolia, which is kind of greater Turkey, as it's known today. Now, a guy named Osman I united these tribes, and so the name Osman in Persian is more of an Uthman, and then when you drag that through Latin and Greek and Italian, it comes out Ottoman at the other end. So that's basically where it came from. So how did this whole sultan system work? Well, what would happen is that the sultan would have a virgin brought to him. He would sleep with her, and then she would go back to the harem, and that was the only time she slept with the sultan. Now, if she became pregnant, then she moved up in the ranks, and she would raise that child. And ideally, if it was a boy, then she really raised up. She'd raise that child in the harem, and when he was old enough, both of them would go off to a different part of the empire and learn how to rule, basically. When the sultan died, the oldest son would return and become sultan. He would then kill his brothers to prevent any kind of power struggle. Now, during the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, his wife Roxolana, he kind of broke tradition, where he actually married one of Roxolana, who was his favorite of his women. And what happens is she then moved the harem from where it was located in the Golden Palace to here at the Topkapi Palace. And instead of sending the boys off to learn how to govern, everyone just kind of stayed at the palace. When the boys got old enough, they moved into an apartment with their mother and basically stayed there. So they didn't really get any governing experience, and the boys all kind of became mama's boys, really. And what was happening then is that the women were gaining a lot of power because they were basically controlling their sons. So this was known as the Sultanate of Women, and it lasted for about 150 years. So at that point, women were literally running the Ottoman kingdom, even though when they're actually meeting people, they had to be completely covered up.
Nereye gidecek?